A new study from Microsoft and LinkedIn shows why the way that we're thinking about enterprise AI adoption is entirely wrong. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. One of the big topics of conversation around artificial intelligence right now is if and how it is actually useful in the workplace. There has been this low-grade conversation constantly ever since the launch of ChatGPT that's basically had a sub-theme of, well, yeah, these things are cool, but are they actually useful? Oftentimes, the contra-argument for why they're not so useful and just hyped up has been low rates of adoption in a top-down enterprise kind of way. You'll often see statistics in the media around how CXOs are slow-walking a little bit their adoption of AI because they're not sure where the ROI is happening. Now, my argument has long been that all of these things, all of these studies, all of these surveys, all of these statements are completely wrong-headed and totally miss the mark of how AI adoption is actually happening. I believe that AI is not being adopted in a top-down sort of way, where like the cloud, an IT manager makes a decision about a tool and then spreads it to everyone in the company. Instead, I believe it's being adopted bottoms up. Individual employees are experimenting with tools, often in their own time and certainly with their own email addresses, figuring out what works for them, and then slowly and sometimes sneakily bringing it into the office, and mostly not telling people for fear of being told that they're not allowed to use it anymore. What's more, I think that the impact of AI is not about entire categories of jobs just suddenly vanishing from the earth. Instead, I think it's all about small but significant wins day in, day out, where employees either save time or do better work in a way that is at once tiny, but in the aggregate, huge. In other words, think about it like this. If you used to make YouTube thumbnails manually and it took you 35 minutes, and now you make them with AI and it takes you 5 minutes, let's imagine that you do that daily. Well, that's 30 minutes a day, that's 2.5 hours a week, that's 10 hours a month, that's 120 hours a year, which if you're thinking about an average 40-hour work week is 3 weeks of time that you just got back. And that's to say nothing of potential quality improvements. So I'm ranting, of course, but this is because this has seemed incredibly obvious to me when you actually interact with anyone who's using AI at work. It's everyone, and they're not getting caught up on questions of ROI, they're just figuring out how these tools are incredibly useful right now, and they don't want to give it up. This is an enterprise technology category that has consumer adoption dynamics. Once you have used AI to continue this example to make YouTube thumbnails, you are absolutely never going back to the way that you did it before. Well, now we have a study that has finally started to put some numbers around this thesis. It's a report from Microsoft and LinkedIn called the 2024 Work Trend Index. They titled it, AI at Work is Here, Now Comes the Hard Part. Here is the big banner headline. The way that Microsoft sums it up, employees want AI at work and won't wait for companies to catch up. Specifically, 75% of knowledge workers now use AI at work. As we'll get into in a minute, they report incredible value around it being time-saving, boosting their creativity, allowing them to focus on their most important work. Contrast that with the top-down, boss-led AI adoption. On the one hand, 79% of leaders agree that AI adoption is critical to remain competitive, but 59% of them worry about quantifying the productivity gains of AI, and 60% of them say their company lacks a vision or plan to implement it. And so they're stuck and they don't do anything, or maybe they do just some small proof of concept. The resulting phenomenon is something that Microsoft and LinkedIn call BYOAI, bring your own AI. In short, 78% of AI users are bringing their own tools to work. That means they're not using some tool that the enterprise has set up for them. They're just using an individual tool that works for them. Knowledge workers, in other words, are voting with their feet, and they're saying, we are not going to wait for you to catch up. We are going to use these tools right now. For employers, there are huge problems with this. Some of them are about the downside. There are real security issues when it comes to company data if it's being fed into commercial tools. However, I think that the biggest miss here is the miss on all the benefits that come as this distributed network of employees is actually figuring out what works. The Vanguard kid in the marketing department could be sharing what she learned with all the other folks over in the accounting department, but instead, all of that knowledge is remaining trapped, stuck in people's heads, not able to actually impact productivity more broadly. And it's not just that these employees are not really sharing this, it's that they're actively avoiding talking about it. 52% of people who are using AI at work are reluctant to admit using it for their most important tasks. 53% of people who use AI at work worry that using it on important work tasks makes them look replaceable. In other words, we've created an entire generation of professional AI smugglers. It's really important to note that the people who use these technologies really report incredible benefits from them. 90% of users say that AI helps them save time. 85% say that it helps them focus on their most important work. 84% say it helps them be more creative. 83% of these knowledge workers like their jobs more because they're using these AI tools. Compare that with other studies which find that 68% of people, for example, say they struggle with the pace and volume of work. Nearly half, 46%, say they feel burned out. It is insane to me that a technology that is having such a big impact on those challenges isn't being screamed from the halls by every boss, manager, director, and CEO. The good news is I don't think that this is a state that's going to last long. In our experience at Superintelligent, a significant number of enterprise leaders are coming around to the idea that the right way to adopt AI is, in fact, bottoms up, to empower their employees to experiment. Experiment safely, but experiment, figure out what works, and then share that with their colleagues. I think once we break through and normalize this just a little bit more, the floodgates are going to come open with incredible benefits to follow. Anyways, friends, slightly different type of AI Daily Brief today. As we discussed in the headline section, it's a slightly slow news day, I think because there is so much in the way of big events and announcements coming up in the next few weeks. But I think that this one is really important. I think that this study is shining light on something that doesn't get talked about enough, and I'm glad it's now out. For now, though, that is going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Until next time, peace